over and over again, you'll be able to recognize kind of the same characteristics in other patterns as well. Okay? Now, in our charts here, we're going to go over MarketSmith charts. We're going to start with the cup with handle. And we're using weekly and daily charts, okay, both. It's always important to use both because it gives you a big picture view and then a more granular view when you go to the daily. So we're going to start with a chart here. And what I want you to think about here is there's two phases, okay? Your research phase, that's when the base is forming. That's your homework time, okay? That's when you're doing your research, learning what the company does, all of those things. Now, the other part, the other phase is your action phase. That's when the breakout actually happens, okay? So those are your two phases. So here's a stock here that hasn't corrected too much. It's had a nice move, hasn't corrected too much, and now you've got this very strong week right here, okay? An earnings report comes out, and you've got a strong reversal on earnings, and huge volume, okay? That's identified by this little balloon right there. So MarketSmith kind of lets you know, hey, this is something to pay attention to. And if this had dropped off your radar, okay, it should be coming back on your radar. Now it's time to put this in the research phase. The ratings on this were good, and as it continues to make its pattern, you want to see, okay, as it gets up to that level, you almost expect a handle to form. Okay, that's what happens in the majority of the cases. And you also want to see this very quiet volume. The volume should trickle down to almost nothing. Okay, that's ideal. Because it's just getting rid of the weaker holders. It's not getting rid of institutions. It's not getting rid of your strong holder. It's just getting rid of the weaker holders. That's why the volume's so low. Okay, now it continues playing out. And let me just spend a quick minute here on pattern recognition. What you're seeing here is algorithms that the computer is doing, okay, for MarketSmith that kind of will identify these patterns. It'll identify the pivot point for you. It'll tell you how deep the pattern is, what stage is it. All of this is done by the computer for you. And then you have these colored bars here. The green is telling you where the 20% level is from the pivot point. That's where you might consider taking profits. The blue is your 5% window from the pivot point. That's the ideal point to be buying. You don't want to buy too far out of that because then you're extended and you're more likely to get shaken out. Okay, so that's the 5% window in the blue. And then the pink is your 8%. Okay, if it goes down 8% from your purchase price, that's where you need to sell. Okay, to cut your loss. It might come back, but that's still kind of a top rule that we use, that 8% rule. And of course, we also have this blue dot. We've got this blue dot that's identifying the relative strength at new highs. And Scott St. Clair is going to talk a little bit more about that later. So now we've got our pattern formed, a nice cup with handle, and we're going to wait for that breakout. Now this is our action point. We've done our research at this point. We're not seeing the breakout and saying, oh, okay, what does this company do? We've done our research, now it's time to act. We've got nice volume there. We've got it crossing that pivot point, and in the first week, it looks like it comes right out and goes out of the window, of the 5% window. But if we switch to the daily, we can see that first day did give you the opportunity to get into that stock, okay, in that 5% window. We had a screaming relative strength line, great volume. This is that turn where we started. That was the earnings report that came out. Huge volume there. So everything is looking pretty good on this chart. And it just so happens that that was on a follow-through day as well, September 1st, 2010. So always be aware of the stocks that are coming out on follow-through days because they can be some of your most powerful ones. So this stock just keeps on crawling up. And now you see, wow, this is a lot of weeks up in a row. You know, and not all of them are big, that's okay, but most of them are closing in the peaks. What this is telling you is that institutions are most likely in this stock because they can't just buy their position in one day or 1 week. They're buying a little bit over time.